Shalom, my friends. Today I am going to reveal something that is rarely spoken about outside of our community. I am going to show you the ancient, counterintuitive, and profoundly effective system for how Jewish kids are taught about money. This is not about allowances or piggy banks. This is a 3,000-year-old spiritual technology designed to hardwire a child's soul for prosperity, responsibility, and purpose. If you are a parent, a grandparent, or anyone who cares about the next generation, what I am about to share will fundamentally change the way you think about financial education. By the end of this video, you will understand why the common methods of teaching children about money are destined to fail, and you will have the blueprint for a system that builds a foundation for lifelong wealth and meaning. But first, I want you to reflect for a moment. What is the single most important money lesson you learned as a child, and who taught it to you? Was it a lesson of scarcity or abundance? Of fear or of purpose? Go to the comments right now and share that memory. By sharing, we learn from each other and honor those who taught us. Now, our mission here is to build an army, a global force of 100,000 souls armed with the divine wisdom to achieve financial freedom and change the world. If you are ready to be a part of this holy endeavor, to reclaim your power as a co-creator with God, then take 1 second and click that subscribe button. It is a small action that signifies a massive commitment to your own growth. And for those who are ready to graduate from soldier to general, the doors to the Torah Millionaire Business School are open, but they are closing very soon. For a single one-time investment of $299, I will give you the entire operating system, the complete Jewish methodology for building and sustaining wealth that has been tested for 3,000 years. This is not just a course, it is an inheritance. The link is in the comments. Do not let this moment pass. I can speak with such authority on this topic because my own first lesson about money was a moment of profound confusion and ultimately transformation. I was 7 years old. My grandfather, may he rest in peace, gave me my first dollar. In my 7-year-old mind, that dollar was a key to a kingdom of candy and toys. It was pure potential for pleasure. I clutched it in my hand, my mind racing with all the things I could buy. It was my dollar. It was for me. I ran to my father, my eyes wide with the excitement of consumption. I asked him to take me to the store. My father looked at the dollar, then he looked at me, and he didn't smile. He said, "We will go to the store, but first we have a stop to make." He took me not to the candy store, but to the synagogue. It was a quiet weekday afternoon. He walked me to the back of the sanctuary where there was a small, simple metal box on the wall with a slot in the top, a pushki, a charity box. He handed me a dime from his own pocket and said, "This is the first part." He had me put the dime into the box. Then he looked at my dollar. He said, "Now, from your dollar, you must also give." He exchanged my dollar for coins and had me put a dime of my own money into the box. I remember the feeling of protest in my little heart. That was my money. It was for my candy. I had just lost 10% of my purchasing power before I even had a chance to purchase anything. I didn't understand. It felt like a punishment. It felt like a tax. It felt unfair. That day, I left the synagogue with a profound sense of confusion. I had just learned my first lesson about money, and it was a lesson in loss. The common enemy that we are all unknowingly fighting is what I call the consumer consciousness. It is the default programming of the modern world. It is the idea that the primary purpose of money is personal consumption and gratification. From the moment a child sees their first advertisement, they are being indoctrinated into this system. The message is simple. You work to earn money, so you can use that money to buy things that will make you happy. Money is a tool for getting. Life is a process of earning and spending. Your value is measured by what you can acquire. The hidden mechanism of this lie is that it turns our children and ourselves into passive recipients, not active creators. It creates a direct neurological link between money and dopamine, the pleasure chemical. Money equals pleasure. Therefore, the absence of money equals pain. This creates a lifelong hamster wheel of anxiety. You work a job you don't love to earn money to buy things you don't need to get a temporary hit of pleasure to distract you from the fact that you are working a job you don't love. It is a perfect closed loop of servitude. The cost of this programming is a society of financially fragile adults, people who, regardless of their income, live paycheck to paycheck. People who are buried in consumer debt, chasing the next hit of pleasure. People who have a deep, gnawing sense of purposelessness, because they have been taught that the entire point of their economic life is their own gratification. It creates a soul with a hole in its pocket. No matter how much money pours in, it is never enough, because the hole of selfish desire is infinite. But our ancient tradition offers a radically different paradigm. In Judaism, a child is not taught to be a consumer of money. A child is taught to be a manager of divine energy. Money is not a toy, it is a holy tool. It is a physical manifestation of divine blessing, and it comes with an instruction manual. The first financial lesson a Jewish child learns is not about what money can do for them, but what money can do for the world. This is why the first financial instrument a Jewish child is given is not a piggy bank to hold money for themselves, but a pushki, a charity box to hold money for others. This simple act hardwires the child's brain for a completely different reality. Before I can spend, before I can even save, I must first give. This single practice demolishes the ego's claim of ownership. It teaches the child from their very first dollar that the money is not truly theirs. They are merely a steward, a trustee, a manager of assets that belong to God. Their needs, their wants, their desires are not the primary purpose of the money. The primary purpose is to be a channel for goodness in the world. This leads to the three-part system that has been the foundation of Jewish financial education for centuries. It is the triple tithe protocol. Every dollar a child receives is divided into three streams. 1. Tzedakah, justice, giving, the first 10%. The very first portion of any money that comes into their hands is set aside for others. We call it tzedakah, which does not mean charity. It means justice. It is an act of justice to redistribute God's resources to where they are needed. This is not an emotional act of feeling sorry for someone. It is a legal, financial obligation. This first step teaches the most important lesson. I am not the owner. I am a manager, and my first duty is to the owner of the portfolio. 2. Saving and investing. The second 10 to 20%. The next portion is set aside for the future. This teaches the child the power of delayed gratification, the wisdom of planning, and the miracle of compounding growth. This is based on the Talmudic principle that a person should divide their assets into three. One part in land, long-term, stable assets. one part in business, active investments, and one part liquid, cash for opportunities. By teaching a child to save and invest from their first dollar, you are teaching them to be a builder of the future, not just a consumer of the present. 3. Spending. The remainder. Only the portion that remains after giving and saving is available for personal spending. This is a revolutionary concept in the modern world. It teaches the child that their personal gratification is the last priority of money, not the first. It automatically teaches them to live within their means. It severs the toxic link between money and immediate impulsive pleasure. It frames spending not as the goal of money, but as one of its many and least important functions. This is the system. It is simple, it is profound, and it is the absolute opposite of how the world operates. The world says, earn, spend, and maybe if there's something left over, save or give. The Torah says, receive, give, save, and then, with what is left, wisely spend. My father's lesson at the synagogue that day was my initiation into this system. I didn't understand it then. My 7-year-old ego was bruised, but the lesson was imprinted on my soul. That dime I put in the pushke was the most important financial transaction of my life. It was a declaration that the money was not mine. It was a spiritual investment that paid dividends I could never have imagined. As I grew, that practice was reinforced. Every week before the Sabbath, my father would give me my allowance, and the first thing we did together was put a portion into the charity box. It became a reflex. Receive, then give. My personal breakthrough, the moment I went from intellectually knowing this to understanding it in my bones, came when I was a teenager. I had been saving for months to buy a new, expensive bicycle. It was my obsession. I had a chart on my wall. I was following the 3-part system, but I was doing it mechanically. I was putting my 10% in the pushke, but my heart was with the 80% I was accumulating for my bike. One day, our rabbi gave a sermon about a family in the community whose house had burned down. They had lost everything. He made an appeal. That afternoon, my father sat me down. He didn't command me. He just asked a question. He said, "Your bicycle will bring you happiness for a year. Helping this family will bring you a different kind of happiness for a lifetime. The money is yours to manage. What does God want you to do with his money?" It was a moment of profound crisis. My ego, my desire, my months of planning were all screaming, "Buy the bike." But the lesson of the pushke, the years of training, had created another voice in me, a quieter voice, the voice of the steward. With tears in my eyes, I took my bicycle fund, every dollar I'd saved, and I gave it to the rabbi for the family. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. But the moment I did it, a feeling washed over me that was 1,000 times more powerful than the fleeting pleasure of a new bicycle. It was a feeling of purpose, of alignment, of partnership with God. In that moment, I didn't lose a bicycle. I gained a new identity. I was not a consumer. I was a conduit. That day, I became a wealthy man, long before I had any significant money in the bank. Now, let me give you the practical application. How do you implement this ancient system for yourself and for your children? I call it the First Fruits Protocol. It is a 3-step system for reorienting your entire financial life. Step 1. Establish the 3 jars. You need to make this system physical and visible. Get 3 clear jars or boxes. Label them: giving, tzedakah, growing, saving, investing, and going, spending. Any and all money that comes into your household, your salary, a bonus, a gift, your child's allowance, is not to be deposited into a single bank account. It must first be physically divided into these 3 jars according to the 10-10-80 or 10-20-70 ratio. The physical act of division is critical. It breaks the mental habit of seeing all your money as one big pile for spending. Step 2. The first fruits mandate. The giving jar is not for leftover money, it is for the first fruits. The very first 10% of any income must go into this jar immediately. This is a non-negotiable law. Before you pay the mortgage, before you buy groceries, before you even think about your own needs, you fund the giving jar. This act of faith declares to the universe that you trust your source to provide for the other 90%. It is the ultimate cure for a scarcity mindset. You are acting like an owner of an orchard who knows that giving away the first and best fruits guarantees the health of the entire orchard. Step 3. The weekly distribution. Once a week, perhaps on a Sunday afternoon, you sit down with your family and distribute the contents of the jars. The money from the giving jar is allocated to a charity, a cause, or a person in need. This should be a conscious choice, a family decision. The money from the growing jar is moved to a savings or investment account. This teaches the power of paying your future self. Only the money in the going jar is available for weekly expenses and discretionary spending. If the going jar is empty, you do not borrow from the other jars. You simply wait. This teaches the most powerful lesson of all, living within your means. I taught this system to a couple in my community, Mark and Susan. They were earning a good income, but they were constantly stressed about money. They were deep in credit card debt and felt like they were always behind. They started the 3 jars protocol. They told me the first month was excruciating. They had to drastically cut back their spending. They realized their lifestyle was being funded by debt, not income, but they stuck with it. The first major shift, they said, was psychological. By funding the giving jar first, they stopped feeling like victims and started feeling powerful. They were directing capital with purpose. The second shift was practical. By strictly living off the going jar, they stopped accumulating new debt. Within 6 months, they had a clear picture of their finances for the first time. Within a year, they had paid off one of their credit cards. It took them 4 years, but they eventually became completely debt-free. Mark told me, "Rabbi, the 3 jars didn't just change our finances. They saved our marriage. We stopped fighting about money and started working as a team, as co-managers of our life." Now, you may have objections. "Rabbi, I am in so much debt, I can't afford to give away 10%. I say to you, you cannot afford not to. The 10% is not a loss. It is a spiritual investment in breaking the very mindset that created the debt in the first place. Start with 1%. Start with $1. But you must honor the principle of the first fruits." Another objection. "Rabbi, this is too complicated. It's easier to have one bank account." Easier is not better. The world's easy way has led to a pandemic of financial anxiety. The discipline of this system is what creates the freedom. So here is my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, you will adopt the First Fruits Protocol. You will reorient your financial world around the principles of justice and stewardship. 1. Create your jars. Today, do not wait. Get 3 physical containers. Label them. make the system real in your home. This physical act is the start of your transformation. 2. Commit to the first fruits mandate. For the next 30 days, every single dollar that enters your life from any source, the first 10% goes immediately into the giving jar. No excuses, no exceptions. 3. Hold a weekly family meeting. Schedule a 30-minute meeting every week to manage the 3 jars. If you have children, this is their financial school. This is where they will learn the lessons of wealth that will last a lifetime. And here is a bonus. When you give from your giving jar, do it with joy. Do not see it as a loss. See it as an act of power. You are acting as God's banker, as His partner in the ongoing work of creation. Feel the joy of that role, and that joy will attract even more abundance for you to manage. Remember, my friends, the world teaches our children to be hungry ghosts, endlessly consuming but never satisfied. Our tradition teaches them to be master gardeners, cultivating, nurturing, and distributing the fruits of God's bounty. The choice of which system you use will determine not only their financial destiny, but the destiny of their soul. Shalom, and may you be blessed with the wisdom to teach the next generation not how to make a living, but how to build a life. May you have the courage to manage, not just to own, and may your home be filled with the profound peace that comes from being a channel for divine abundance. Shalom.